All right, here we are in our third match. Finally get to be on the play, which is exciting. Hand is kind of slow, so I'm going to mulligan. And this hand's much better. Oh, yeah. We're doing good. So I'd actually be really happy if my opponent played a 1-drop, just so I can Reflector Mage it. But we're looking to curve, go turn 2. Uh-oh. So, basic island Serum Visions. Might be up against some sort of Grixis shenanigan. But I don't think I need to save my Reflector Mage, and I think I'd rather get something on the board. So, I'm just going to run this out. We could be up against Storm. That would actually be really cool. Cataxian Probe is banned, so definitely hurts Storm, but I don't think it breaks it. Looks like we're probably up against a Jeskai control deck. Wow, and they're going to have a hard time with not only Geist of St. Traft, but good old Gideon. And the mix of planeswalkers and creatures is really the best, because that way you don't just lose to a sweeper. And our opponent could have something like Nahiri, but I mean, look at this. We're so far ahead. And I have no intention of making my Gideon into a creature while there's white mana available. I could play my Geist of St. Traft here. I think it's fine to do so. Most of our board is tokens. We'll see if my opponent actually has a Supreme Verdict. Supreme Verdict's not particularly common. Looks like my opponent doesn't. He could have Anger of the Gods. Can't have Cryptic Command. I almost want an Emblem, but I don't want my entire board to get swept away. What in the world? Targeting his own island. Oh, I wonder if my opponent's going to get another island so that he can Cryptic Command. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Seems like a really bad spot for my opponent. No idea what he could possibly do. I have way too much stuff. Serum Visions is not going to cut it. No siree. Sweet. So for this matchup, it's just going to be the 2 Path to Exiles out and the 2 Negates in. And that's all I'm going to do. It'd be kind of nice to have, 1 or 2 Path to Exiles in case let's say my opponent has something like Baneslayer Angel. But I've got my 1 Dromoka's Command. I've got 4 Reflector Mages. I've got a Tamiyo to tap it down. I've got a Garruk to maybe kill something small. Elspeth to kill something big. And, plenty of stuff to go bigger than it and faster. So I think the one Dromoka's command is going to be enough. So here we have another kind of slow hand. Also not particularly colorful with the mana sources, so I'm going to mulligan. This hand's better. I don't think I really want lands, although if I run into a sweeper, I'll be in trouble. And this is definitely a hand where I'm going to be angling for the turn 2 Geist of Traft. And a lot of these decks are protecting themselves with things like Nahiri, so... And my opponent might have something like a mana leak here. But I'm just going to jam, something else the next turn. So, wow, Logic Knot. All the things, that was probably the one to make me feel most salty for having my thing countered. We'll see if my opponent can muster yet another fancy spell. Nice. Jam, jam, jam. Jam, jamboree. Ooh, the negate's actually quite nice. And this Exalta is just, kind of getting in for a little extra damage. And now I assume that there's probably a cryptic command available. My opponent might even try to just, bounce my Gideon end of turn out of desperation. But my opponent might also assume that there's a Spell Queller. But I can kind of do this all day. My opponent doesn't do anything. I don't really need to commit my mana. I have this negate in case my opponent does anything like really devastating. So, yeah, I mean, I think I can just counter this. Have it be a huge setback for my opponent. And my opponent's starting to run out of time. I have to imagine he has more tricks. Oh, that's a good one. I'm still kind of just overwhelming him, though. Wow, no attack. Kind of a big deal. I actually wouldn't even mind making emblem with my Gideon, but I think I should just go to combat first. Because if my opponent has another cryptic command, I don't want to like cast my Gideon pre-combat, have it get countered, and you know, also tap all my guys. All right, Lightning Helix is pretty decent. Certainly what my opponent needed. And I assume that there's going to be a cryptic command here. Yep. And I do not think it's worth it to bounce that Torrential Gearhulk. So let's see. If I play my Pridemage, I have an Exalted triggers to make my Knight Ally 5/5, not quite big enough. I can make my Lumbering Falls quite large. I like that. Lumbering Falls would actually be a lethal attacker. And if my opponent counters this, then I'll be able to play my Ajani. Opponent could also have another Torrential Gearhulk, which would be pretty good. We'll have to see what my opponent decides to do here. If he taps my team and then playing the Ajani isn't particularly safe. He's just going to counter target spell and draw a card. Okay, I can handle that. Actually, just attack with the bird. Knock him to 1. Um, this isn't flying, right? No. So because my opponent has the Ghost Cord, it's a little odd that he went after that he. Well, actually no, because it would have made the. Well, it only would have made the Night Alley a 5/5. Actually, a little surprised my opponent went after the Qasali Pridemage. I mean, well, I guess the thing is it can one-shot the Torrential Gearhulk. So like I could play the Pridemage, attack with the Knight Ally, and then um, yeah, so I guess you had to counter it. My Ajani does die, which is a little unfortunate. Oh, Engineered Explosives for 1. Jeez. Pretty good. That's unfortunate. I think that. I think that I just attack with the Lumbering Falls. My opponent has like another Snapcaster Mage. Do I have to like trade both? Wow, no attack. Crazy. And I think here I just do nothing. Geez, the Reflector Mage is completely dead. I should have just had Kitchen Finks instead of Reflector Mage for sure. Ooh, Celestial Colonnade. Well, I think it's very likely that my Spell Queller dies. But I don't think I want to sit around and wait to draw my other Spell Queller or my Negate. So there's a small chance that even if my opponent has a removal spell, he may let me go to combat. Be pretty nice. Oh, I didn't do this. Oh, I did that at the wrong time. For some reason, I thought my opponent had gone to their turn, but that was pretty bad. All right, well. So if I bounce the Torrential Gear Hulk, my opponent will just be able to. Oh yeah, these Reflector Mages are so bad. It's like crazy how bad they are. Oh, Vendilion Click. Really good here. Yeah, instead of these Reflector Mages, I'm just going to have 3 Kitchen Finks and 1 Path to Exile. Be a lot better. Wow, very cautious. Not really what I was hoping for. I feel like I kind of have to... play this. Alright, I'm dead. Dead on board. So, Mage out, Mage out, Mage out, Mage out. Grafdigger's Cage is actually pretty sweet. Maybe I'll play that instead of the Path. Because this like hoses multiple cards. Keeps. So what's nice about this hand is I can basically play around a turn 2 counterspell from my opponent. And there's a good chance that I actually run out the Spell Queller on my turn 2. Oh, never mind. Bolting my Noble Hierarch was really good there for my opponent. It's like almost like a time walk. It'd be really nice if my opponent had something to do with his mana on this turn, but fortunately it doesn't really look like the case. Actually, it wouldn't even be crazy to do nothing here, but I'd really like to get my Gideon onto the board. Oh, this is perfect. Now my opponent's gonna be tapped out. I don't have to worry about a like 1 mana removal spell on the Spell Queller and a 2 mana counter spell on my Gideon. This is just fine. Gideon's like so good. And if my opponent taps out on his turn, I'll be able to land this Wingmate Roc. If he doesn't, I've got this Restoration Angel. My opponent may have a Lightning Bolt to finish off this Gideon, which means that it's like a clean 2 for 1, which is decent. Ooh, Electrolyze, wow. Now the Wingmate Roc is looking pretty mediocre. I'm gonna cast this. May just get Cryptic Commanded. But that's kind of okay. As long as I get an attack in with my Noble Hierarch. Ooh, this is actually probably better. I think I'd rather have 1/1 Death Touch creatures. The Wingmate Roc is really looking nice, though. I think the Wingmate Roc's just like a lot more impactful. This is where my opponent's probably like, what? Could have a sweeper like Day of Judgment, but then I get to play my Garruk. No! That was unfortunate. I was a little worried about that Grafdigger's Cage getting tagged by Mana Leak, but I didn't want to wait because then my opponent would have potentially untapped with Torrential Gearhulk mana up. Now we'll get to see if my opponent has a Torrential Gearhulk. Seems like it does not. Oh, never mind. Oh, Sphinx's Revelation. Wow. Well, that's definitely one way to grind me into oblivion. Grafdigger's Cage is kind of nice, though. See if my opponent has like a you know, something to interact with it, like engineered explosives. Oh, that doesn't do anything. What? Is that just another path to exile from his hand? Okay. I already have my one basic. Should be two. Yeah, there's two paths. And I'll go for it. Assume my opponent has quite a few different ways to deal with this, but oh, that's a good one. Wow, now I really feel like a buffoon for... Oh, hello! So my opponent was first, though, which is what matters. Actually, these two planeswalkers together are going to work out pretty well. This Garruk is going to ultimate pretty fast. And allow for a pretty intense counterattack. I assume my opponent has some burn that he has access to finish off these planeswalkers. I mean, my opponent's got to be working with 4 lightning bolts, and he hasn't cast any. Actually, I guess he cast 1 and flashed it back. Yeah, this is like a pretty crazy scenario. Ooh, that's pretty decent. Alright, so... If my opponent has Cryptic Command, this is going to be really bad for me. My opponent doesn't have Cryptic Command, it just has like some other counter spell, then it's not as bad. That would have been really good. Oh, yes. So my opponent's going to get to 7 loyalty with his Elspeth first. But I can basically sacrifice my Garruk. Maybe get a decent attack on my opponent's Elspeth. And I've been able to get a little ahead in terms of tokens with my Garruk. I wonder how different this game would be if I didn't have Grafdigger's Cage. Man, for a matchup like this, it would actually be really nice to have like a Dispel. Like, yeah, he's got to try to assassinate a Planeswalker. Because my opponent's Elspeth is going to be able to win the game from here. Oh, Lumbering Falls, you're so close. So I think this means that my opponent has like another Snapcaster. Yes. They preserve all the loyalty on his Elspeth. And that will be exactly lethal to kill me with the ultimate. Wow, this was actually a really tight game. Definitely have to go back and watch and see what I could have done differently. I think the main thing was game 1. I just keeping in the Reflector Mages was just too bad. But this was a sweet one.